Heaven is all basked in here. Hell is all suffered here. There's no pending salvation, no pending punishments. What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. This might offend a few people, maybe more than a few, because I'm going to talk about fundamental ideas of heaven or hell, which are deeply personal and rooted into religions that people have been following their entire life. I'm only here to share my own perspective on it. That gives me peace to live with. And it probably borrows ideas from all religions, which I think are just stories of fundamental truths. I think it's okay if we come to understandings of these truths on our own, without the context or guidance or borrowed language from formal sources, even though there might be overlap. Who is to say what is coming through me is not also being spoken from the same source? At the end of the day, I believe if you find a deeply personal way to make sense of something for you, and it makes it more likely that you are to live in accordance to that, because it will feel like it came from you, not a borrowed idea, a square peg in a round hole that you are just trying to make fit into your values. I believe if you arrive at such truths yourself, that their resolve is more durable through the attacks of life. So now that I got that preamble out of the way, in hopes to keep you open to these ideas, let's continue. And I have a feeling that you will agree with me by the end of this. The place where my ideas fork, slightly away from common religious notions, are about heaven and hell, and the deeds while we are here that lead to that we believe. On episode 292, Divine Designation, I hint at the flavor of my issue with this idea. The thing that bothers me about the well-accepted idea of heaven or hell is that it is looked at as a place to go once we die. It is meant to be like a carrot or a stick, a consequential reality of what happens when a person lives their life a certain way or another way. It is that the one that sins will head to hell, or if they are somewhat redeemable, they will go to a hell-like purgatory and then be eventually allowed into heaven, while others who do good deeds and live properly and morally are welcomed into heaven right away. We have built in this societal notion into everything from old Tom and Jerry cartoons to other forms of media, movies. We picture ourselves arriving at the gates, meeting the gatekeeper, and being told our fate of where we go, where we belong. Gates open and you are sent in, or the ground opens and you are swallowed up into the pits of hell. The problem I have with this is that it is supposed to be a prescriptive or cautionary tale that tells you how to live. But the problem with extrinsic tactics of reward or punishment, carrot or the stick, misses out the intrinsic reward a person actually experiences in living out the things that lead them to heaven or hell. In other words, if the only thing keeping a person decent is the expectation of divine reward, then brother, that person is a piece of shit. The whole notion that you live good because it gets you something makes it a cheap transaction. And though you may need to live out a lot of good to do so, doing it just for the reaching of heaven makes your doing hollow. I've heard many people use this verbiage, even though they might mean the deeper meaning that I'm actually saying. Again, I have a feeling you will agree with me by the end of this. What I think they really mean is what I am trying to say. So let's update the words we use when we're talking about this. I've heard many people tell me that they do their prayers do their fasting or do certain things because God is watching or because they are rewarded for such activities. And in my mind, there's always this protest that the doing is hollow if you think this way. I know you probably don't think this way, and you just don't have better words to use. So let's make sure we are on the same page culturally when talking about this. Here's my take on this. And it needs to be said about heaven or hell, along with the accompanying ideas of good and evil that we think lead to one or the other. My take is, I think there is no thereafter, no life after death. I talk more in detail about what I think happens after we die on a recent episode reflecting on my father's passing called Merged with God, episode 357. So I'm not going to labor that again. But in line with that thinking, I don't believe there is anything in the thereafter. We merge back to the source. We go right back to where we came from. We become part of the whole again, part of the source, the universal, ever-present energy, God, whatever definition suits you. This is why I believe God accepts everyone, even the sinners, because how could he reject a part of himself from coming back home? Even the devil was a God. Do you think he would reject him if he wanted to go back to God? Do you think the doors with God are ever closed? God is a forgiving God. He does not punish or reward you in the ways that you think. It is not pending for you at arrival or departure. I'll explain more later about where I think the punishment and reward still exists, but it isn't in the thereafter. It isn't waiting for you. I think what happens is that we are so attached to our identities that even in our imagination of after we die, we somehow think that our identities will live on to be rewarded or suffer the consequences of our actions in heaven or hell. Even after our death, we don't imagine that we are detached from everything and dissolve back into everything. You go back to where you once came. There's nothing left to suffer or be rewarded for, but you just don't want to let go of your name, who you are, what you think of yourself, what you think you deserve. You refuse to accept that you don't get to keep any of that. You remain that for the people you left behind, but there is no you left to take with you. The you that's left is an ever-present you that was there before it assumed your body and your name. And it goes back to that ever-presentness. So yes, you heard me right. All of us, sinners and winners alike, we are all welcomed back into the arms of God. We all get to enter the gates of heaven, if you would like to see it that way. Do you really think your merciful God would deny you at the door? That's not how this works. Why live a virtuous life then? Why behave to be good or evil if there is no consequence or reward afterwards? I think this idea scares people because if there is no divine supreme being waiting to judge or hand out punishment, then do all the evil people just get away with what they're doing? And do all the people doing good just not get the benefit of doing all that good? What's the point then? While God is a merciful God, he is also a judgmental God. He is the ideal. The higher the ideal, the harsher the judge. Just because he does not keep you out of heaven does not mean you are spared from the consequences of your transgressions. You suffer them just the same. There's no getting away from that. No one ever gets away with anything. there's still a huge motivator to act in goodness and in the right. Despite the idea of extrinsic reward being stripped away from this picture, this is where we start to look for intrinsic reasons to be virtuous. How you still serve yourself, how you still reach towards heaven or hell. The effect and the consequences of it, though, is not delayed or offset by time. It is immediate in the myth that you live out and create. Let me explain. Heaven or hell is all here. Heaven is all basked in here. Hell is all suffered here. There's no pending salvation, no pending punishments. Karmic retribution is instant. There's no delay. There's no greater punishment than the hell you manifest inside of your own body in the very moment that you transgress. There's no delay in that. You feel it instantly. Even if someone is a sociopath and has no conscience and is not conscious about what it is that they are doing or saying, still, in their body, they manifest hell. The chemistry of evil does not change because you don't recognize it. Just because you can't taste or feel the poison does not mean it is not killing you. Heaven or hell, it is all experienced here before you go. In your habits, in the habitat that those habits create, the habitat around you, your environment, your relationships, and the habitat it creates inside of you, the environment you live in inside of you. That's all your life is. It's all that is. There is no thereafter to condemn or reward you. You suffer hell, rejoice in heaven, all right here, before you go. What greater motivation than that do you need? Anything you do, you will suffer it here before you go. Anything you deserve to be rewarded for is also instant in the peace it provides you. You don't have to wait long to reach heaven, and there's no delay when you are on the road to hell. There is no thereafter. There's only now. And if you want any indication of whether you have been walking towards heaven or hell, just look up at your life now, and you will know your station. How does it feel inside of your body in this very moment? Does it feel like peace or punishment? I love you, family. Stay true always. I'll see you on the next show.